I don't know if this is true, but it seemed, I've always predicted this, one of the aftermaths of the lockdowns, we created this pandemic industrial complex, this intertwined network of nonprofits, government agencies, and special interest groups on the private sector that are all feeding off of all the money that's being spent to deal with public health.
Mm-hmm.
That machine needs something to do now.
Yeah.
They, in my mind, very much are responsible for any increase in alcoholism. I assume there's a similar dynamic in Canada as well. So they broke something by trying to fix it, and now they've created another health crisis, and they're going to fix that. Maybe that's the public choice story here.
Well, and I think there's a bit of mission creep, right? We see this in the NGO space, especially on the public health side, where groups who are focused on solving problem X make some gains, and then all of a sudden they get really passionate about solving issue Y. And it could very much be, well, how does an organization like the CCSA justify getting money if they're just, we've done our job on smoking, or we've done our job on some other public health issue. And so the window of what they consider worth going after widens to justify their existence and possibly justify those taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. I guess if there's not a real crisis, they can create one.
Yeah. What can we go after next? Yeah. I mean, we see it across the board. All of a sudden, they're focused on gambling, and should sports stars be able to endorse gambling apps? And we have to think about the children, and that's not to discredit or downplay gambling addiction, because it's real.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it gets really wide, and in the Canadian context, the wider it gets, the more hypocritical it gets, because for Americans in Canada, the federal government has a very strident approach to harm reduction for hard drugs, needle exchange, safe consumption sites, drug exchange sites. You have all sorts of programs designed to allow for addicts to stay alive and try and reduce the harm associated with drugs. Well, at the same time, on issues like vaping or alcohol, it's like they've forgotten that principle, and they're rewinding to the 1920s and being like, actually, I think we can get away with restricting this as much as possible. And so you have, in theory, if you live in British Columbia, you have decriminalized drugs. That's not a policy I'm against, because I'm in favor of personal autonomy. It's not something I recommend. So you have a government that is decriminalizing things like cocaine or heroin or meth, while also lecturing you about that third beer.
Yeah.
And how do you reconcile those two things? I don't think you can. And I've never heard anybody rationally justify the disparity.